That great shootout 45-40 in Glendale. Nick Saban raised the trophy a year later. Clemson would get its revenge in Tampa. Hunter Renfrow from Deshaun Watson, giving the Tigers its first national championship since 1981. Round 3, ding, ding. Clemson and Bama went to the Tide. Kelly Bryant falling to Alabama in the semifinal of the Sugar Bowl. But then last season, Clemson dominated its 2 playoff games, beating Notre Dame, and then handing Alabama its worst loss in the Nick Saban era, 44-16. Maria Taylor with Dabo Sweeney.
All right, Coach, you finally know that you will be playing Ohio State. You're headed to Arizona. That's the A in the Believe We Can. What was your reaction to hearing that was going to be your matchup? Because your team exploded with a lot of excitement.
Well, we're excited. I mean, you know, we just wanted to be in it. It really, I mean, we kid around and have fun, but it really doesn't matter where we were ranked. We don't care if we were 1-4. We just want a chance. Because when you get to this stage, I mean, whether you play 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're talking about elite teams. So. But we've been to Arizona. That's a great place to go. They do an amazing job out there at the Fiesta Bowl, so we're excited about it and look forward to a great matchup.
I love that one of the things you wanted to do is remind your team of history. First time since 1966 that you start 1 and finish 3.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I was just told that this morning. I was like, man, we're making a lot of history around here. But we got a good plan together, and you know, we'll be excited about it. We got a little less than 3 weeks now till we kick it off out there in the desert.
All right, we'll see you there, Coach.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ach, I want to ask you this question in as open-ended a way as possible. Nothing loaded about this because I think Clemson's playing better than anybody in college football right now. Why is everyone so afraid of Clemson?
Because they put up video game numbers. KC, I was looking at it, and Coach said before break, Coach Moore, he said, you know, LSU's not afraid to play anybody. I would challenge that and honestly say I don't think Clemson is scared to play anybody. Look at, they won their championship game by 45 points. Game before that, 35 points. Game before that, 49 points. And the game before that, 45 points. It's as if they're playing a video game on the easiest setting possible. And that's why everybody's so afraid.
Yeah, well, you know what? They'll get the matchup that maybe they want at Ohio State and the chance to move on beyond that. We're excited to move the conversation on and welcome in Jeremy Pruitt, head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. Coach, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us here. Your team gets Indiana in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, January 2nd. You can see the game 7 Eastern here on ESPN. What's your reaction to that matchup?
You know, our players, our coaches, our fans, we're excited for the opportunity to go to Jacksonville and play Indiana, who's really been a hot team this fall. And, you know, we've turned our season around, and our guys are excited about getting another opportunity.
Let me ask you about that. The 2-5 start to the season, and then you win 5 in a row to finish the season. 4 of those wins coming in SEC play. What exactly is it that changed with your football team?
Well, we have a young football team. We're only playing 7 seniors, and you know, the season didn't start the way we wanted, but our guys stuck together. I think it speaks volumes about our coaching staff, the culture on our team, the trajectory of our program, and our players are excited to give an opportunity to play again.
Coach, how do you assess where you are in year 2 versus where you wanted to be when you took over in Knoxville? Well,
your record is who you are, and we've owned it. I think that's one of the great things about this team is, you know, when we were 2-5, we owned it. We tried to find a way to fix it, and our guys done a fantastic job believing in what we're trying to get done here, and they worked hard together. They stayed the course, and it showed on the field.
Coach, Emmanuel Acho here. Congrats on a great season. How big are these bowl games for you, especially seeing as you have a young team? How big are these bowl practices that you now get because of this bowl game?
Well, it's very important when you go back and work on the fundamentals and you continue to grow as a football team, football program, the player development that goes into it. We'll spend half the time just working on Tennessee before we ever start any bowl prep. So it's almost getting like half of a spring practice there. So it's something that we need with all the young guys we got. They'll continue to develop as football players, and then we got an opportunity to play a fantastic football team in the end, and it's something that we're excited about.
Coach, I know you've been a part of some really good programs, and when you speak about culture, which is obviously a hot word in coaching, Alabama may have one of the best cultures in the history of the sport. I'm curious to know, what's the culture of Tennessee football? What's the identity of Tennessee football?
Well, I can tell you the guys that are on our football team are hardworking young men. They're great student athletes. They represent the university well. They come to work every single day to improve as a football player, to improve in the classroom. We have a young team. I feel like that the seniors that we got on our football team have set a fantastic example that will carry us on for years to come.
I know you didn't get to see LSU this season, but you did see Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, all teams that LSU beat. As someone who coaches in the SEC, help us put into perspective how tough it is to go 13-0 in your conference as the Tigers did.
Well, the demand week in and week out, getting a team ready to play, being at your best, it's something hard to do in any conference. And it speaks volumes to what Ed Ogeron and his football team have done. They obviously have a few games left here that they've got to be at their best at. And, in this league, in this day in college football, anybody can beat anybody on any given week.
There's no question about that. And I know that your attention now turns to Indiana in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Coach Pruitt, we appreciate your time and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Tennessee head football coach Jeremy Pruitt joining us here on Championship Drive Rankings Reaction. And when we come back, we'll look back at the plays that shaped the college football playoff.
At Michigan, which is top 14, then they win the Big Ten championship game. I just thought that Ohio State would stay at number one, but I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with LSU being number one.
I agree with LSU at number one. They're there because of the resume. They're there because they're peaking at the right time. I think if I was Ohio State, I'd be very disappointed with the committee's decision because I'd feel like they're not evaluating all 13 games throughout the course of the year. They beat 5 top 21 teams. They averaged their margin for victory in all of their games this year was 36 points. It was the most in college football, and they've been dominant on both sides of the ball all season long. They've got players on each side that could get invited to New York City for the Heisman Trophy. So picking a team playing its best football now versus the team that played its best over 13 games would make me upset if I'm Ohio State because now I have the toughest road to reach the national championship game having to play Clemson.
That's the deal. Splitting the hairs between number one is hard to pound the fist on the table for either LSU or Ohio State. But all of you guys seem to believe that it is a massive disadvantage to have to face the reigning national champions in the semis.
All right, quick line check now. Get Reese, Jesse, Joey, and David out of there, and we're back.
All right.
Kev, Coach, and Ach here in studio. Look, guys, we talked about it every single Sunday morning, right, on Championship Drive, who's in, who are the 4 teams going to be. I don't think that there's much debate. I think the committee really did get it right. Maybe the only question is Ohio State sitting here saying, you know what, 13-0, we ran the gauntlet in the Big Ten. We won the Big Ten championship. How were we jumped by LSU? Coach, did you have a problem with LSU jumping Ohio State?
I had a slight I wouldn't say a problem. It was curious to me. And here's why it was curious to me is the committee had them first the last 2 weeks. I had LSU first the last 6 weeks. Last night at about 1 o'clock, I just said, you know what, I got to make a decision here. I said, you know what, I believe in Ohio State. And so I put Ohio State above LSU, and I did it based upon these things. Their scoring differential, 470-point scoring differential. Their opponent winning percentage, 58%, 9 conference games, so the completeness of their team. Now, I also understand why LSU is number one and the resurgence of their defense. These last 3 weeks, they've only given up 12.3 points per game against some pretty good teams. So while I had OSU number one, it was a tough decision for me. I can certainly understand LSU being number one.
Yeah, for me, Coach, I didn't get as analytical with it because when I looked at all those numbers, there's so many that are in Ohio State's favor, and then there's some that are in LSU's favor. What I did know is the committee gave us a math equation, and their math equation simply said LSU minus defense equals number 2. LSU with defense is number 1. And LSU proved the last 2 weeks that they are more sound or they have fixed some of those defensive woes. Now, we all know Georgia didn't have Pickens for a half, didn't have Cager, didn't have DeAndre Swift. LSU can't dictate who trots out on the football field for the other team. But the committee said and made it clear that LSU was number 2 because of their lack of defense. That became obvious after LSU played Ole Miss. LSU said, okay, committee, we gotcha. Beat Texas A&M. hold them to 7 points, dominate Georgia in an SEC championship game, that Georgia essentially had home field advantage in Atlanta. For me, and for that reason, I'm not surprised by it at all. I'm not shocked with it, and I have no issues with it.
You heard Marty Smith in his report say that when LSU was announced as the number 1 team overall, that there was an audible roar coming from the room that the Tigers were pleased that they were the number 1 team in the country. I don't assume that LSU is afraid of playing anybody.
No.
Because they've beaten everybody all year. But does a small part of you watch from the player's perspective say, whew, we don't have to play Clemson?
No doubt about it. And I think as a player, you'd be lying if you didn't realize that Clemson presented a bigger challenge than Oklahoma. Offensively, defensively, talent-wise, and just as where both teams are from a health perspective. You would be absolutely lying. I understand players and coaches are supposed to be super macho, but everybody knows that there is a sigh of relief knowing, thank God, we do not got to see Trevor Lawrence and company.
That's true. I understand that point. LSU fears no man, no team, no player.
They've proven that all year long en route to the 13-0 record and the SEC championship. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about this Clemson football team. Recap their victory in the 2019 College Football Playoff Championship. That's right, Dabo. We're talking about your team, talking about just how good they are heading into